I awoke to a silence that roared, the kind of silence that announces something inside you has already cracked. The first text arrived like a small, polite explosion. 3 words, no warning. And the map of my plans folded into nothing. We had circled the dates on paper calendars and in the margin of our lives for almost a year. August 14th to 21st, a week that had been inked into my phone, my paycheck, my late-night daydreams. Harper and I had sketched the trip like architects' rooftop bars, a coastal drive, a single hostel bunk room that promised the kind of intimacy that only long friendships afford. You trade the day for messy confessions and come back with stories. That smell of salt and cheap coffee? We had traded spreadsheets of costs and playlists and screenshots of sunrises we wanted to chase. We had built that week out of our small, tremulous hope for something uncomplicated. Then she sent me the text, "I'm sorry, I just can't afford it right now. I'm really bummed. I have to cancel." No explanation. No trembling ellipsis. No way for me to thread the sentence into what I knew of her life. I read the words 3 times, then sat on my couch and let the air leave the room. At first I told myself all the soft things I tell myself to stay kind. Maybe a bill came in, maybe an emergency. I messaged back the usual, totally okay. We can go later. Do you want me to help? A text designed to be both generous and discreet. The kind of offer you make to the people you don't want to burden. Her reply arrived. Measured. No, I don't want to be a burden. It's not the right time. She included a heart emoji, which made it worse. Hearts do not pay for flights, and they do not explain sudden silence. We had been friends since the fluorescent glow, days of college studios and cheap takeout. We knew each other's skeletons well enough that I thought I recognized her shorthand for crisis. She never mentioned money problems on a whim. She had a way of appearing more solid than she often felt, and I had spent late nights propping her up. I told myself that whatever it was, it would pass. That evening, I did something halfway between compromise and cowardice. I offered to cover part of her expenses. "We've been saving for this," I wrote. "Let me help. We'll go together." She refused, politely resolute. "I can't take you up on that. Don't worry. It's just not the right time." The refusal felt like a slamming door. 3 days passed. I tried to bury my irritation in work and new playlists and the small sanctities of routine. But the night I found the photo, the one that changed the geometry of my memory, I was sitting on my living room floor, my phone screen haloed in the dark. There she was, Harper, suitcase by her side, airport signage behind her, sunlight catching. On the side of her face, the caption read something casual and poisonous, "Off on a much-needed adventure. Couldn't be happier." Next to her, hand on the small of her back, was someone I'd never met in person. I squinted until the pixels resolved. He was in his early 30s, a careful smiled stranger with a camera strap and a look that said, "This is already a story." My mouth went dry. My first impulse was to be reasonable. Maybe it was an old trip, a photo from months before, mislabeled. But the comments were fresh, tagged friends, heart emojis uploaded in the same hour. A tag even gave the destination, coastal Oregon, the very route we had planned. I tapped the picture, my thumb more accusatory than curious. The messages I sent her after that were a show of my decent instincts and failing control. "Hey," I typed, "I saw your post. Everything okay?" The read receipt came quickly. No reply. I called. The phone rang and then her voice bright, strange. In the background, a clatter of airport announcements, crisp and annoyed by my tone. "Oh my God, I'm in such an amazing place," she said, breathless with the cheap ecstasy that airports give people who think travel equals escape. "I can't wait to tell you all about it." The truth slid out before I could fashion a sentence. "Then why did you say you couldn't afford it?" A long pause, paper thin, then, "I didn't think you'd understand," she said in a voice that tried to be gentle and failed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie. I was afraid." Afraid of what? Of telling me she had made other plans? Of losing me if she confessed that nights of uncertainty had been filled with someone else? The flimsy excuses charcoal sketched over a truth that was undeniable. She had chosen to go and had chosen to hide it. The person who had promised rooftop sunsets and late-night confessions had a different story to tell, one she hadn't wanted me to read. My heart developed a new, ugly geography. Betrayal is not cinematic. It's domestically cruel. It lodges in the small gestures. The way a friend says, "I'll be there." The way they promise the precise placement of a comma. Her justification, "I didn't want to hurt you," landed on me like someone flinging salt on an old wound. If she was trying to protect me, she was doing it by trampling the truth. I told myself that confrontation would be a kind of comic relief. I would make a plan, see her when she returned, sit across from her in a cafe and watch her excuses slither out. I imagined the texture of her apology, rehearsed my own lines of accusation and restraint. But facing someone you love and asking why they lied does not come with a script. It's messy and animal and leaves a rawness that no future apology can soothe immediately. When she returned, everything about her sounded like a postcard, suntanned, unflustered. The kind of lightness people bring back from sugar and plain air. She agreed to meet at a cafe, like the kind of person who believes that settling things is a simple coffee away. I arrived with a heart that felt like a fist. She was late by 10 minutes, which I marked in my head like another small, accumulating slight. There's a particular cruelty in someone returning from a week of the world's pleasures and arriving, damp with sunlight, while you have been rehearsing every angry sentence into your pillow. She smiled when she saw me. I didn't. I watched the muscles in her face do the honest work of greeting while my outrage built a scaffold in my chest. What? We finally sat. The cafe hummed with other people's reconcilable lives. Ours felt like an interrupted novel. "I need to know why," I said. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you make me believe we were going to do this together?" She fidgeted with the corner of her napkin, an almost childish signal of nerves. "I swear I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. I thought you'd be upset if I went with him. I was afraid you'd cancel on me. I didn't know how to tell you without it turning into something ugly. Ugly? I snapped. You made it ugly by lying. Her eyes flicked away, and for a moment her face was the pale riverbed of contrition. You have to understand, she murmured. She stopped as if whatever followed would chip the ceramic mask she'd been using. I've been talking to him for a while. It wasn't planned at the last minute. I didn't want to hurt you by choosing him over our plans. Choosing someone else over shared plans is a small betrayal dressed in everyday clothing. It feels personal, because friendship promises a seat at the table. I had not wanted a lecture about romance or the inevitability of shifting priorities. I wanted honesty, and for that reason alone I could not find the thread that would slide this moment into the seam of forgiveness. I asked hard questions. Had she ever thought of me as replaceable? Had I been naive enough to believe our years meant something more to her than a convenient plan? Her answers were ragged and earnest, apologies stitched into explanations. I didn't want to disappoint you, she kept saying, over and over, as if repetition could erase the architecture of deceit. She was sorry, and she wanted to fix it. She offered to make it up to me, to pay me back, to prioritize me, to prove she could be trusted. Apologies are small, bright things, but they do not rebuild foundations with a single sweep. The thing about trust is that it is slow to grow and fast to topple. I left that meeting dissolved into a fog of doubt. People who have been your constellations begin, sometimes without malice, to orbit elsewhere. It's not always malfeasance. Sometimes it is the slow reorientation of two lives that once matched angles. But that knowledge did not soften the cut. I found myself analyzing every minor past slight as evidence of a pattern I'd ignored. Invitations that arrived late. Promises that were teetering on the lip of non-committal. The little things that, in aggregate, became a ledger of my friend's absences. Over the following week, Harper tried the usual reparative moves. Texts that read like carefully rehearsed confessions, little check-ins that sounded urgent and needy. I miss you, she wrote one rainy afternoon. I messed up. Can we talk? Her messages arrived wrapped in apologies like bandages inside. I could see the same old dynamic. Me, the one who was expected to mend. I wrote back, I don't know, which felt like the most honest line I could offer without being cruel. Then came the show of normalcy, an attempt to plan another, smaller trip that both of us could afford. It was a compromise that might have been reasonable if it were not colored by minute unease. We went through the motions, shared a playlist, made a rough budget. We even booked refindable lodgings, but the space between us had an awkward geometry. Now, it was no longer seamless. There were unadvertised edgiers, the kind that catch on fingertips and leave a bruise. Finally, what I had feared unfolded in slow, predictable repetition. Plans she made with the casualness of someone learning a new rhythm and forgetting old promises. She canceled a coffee to rest, then posted later from a bustling downtown cafe. With another friend, smiling in a sunlight that felt like it had been stolen. The pattern was no longer theoretical. It was a series of fresh, pixelated proofs that I was still, in some way, an optional presence in her moments. That night, I sent one message that carried the weight of all the evenings I had swallowed and all the petty accommodations I refused any longer. I'm tired of being your second choice, I wrote. The words trembled in the phone like something born in haste. Her reply came quickly, cluttered with sincerity and defenses. I didn't mean to hurt you, she typed. I've just been busy. You know how life gets. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Busy. The word felt like a talisman in the mouths of people who intend to be forgiven without changing. I thought of every time I had slotted my life into hers, of every late-night call I answered because she said she needed me, of every plan deferred because she preferred an alternate route. The ledger was long and tilted. Forgiveness was possible. Perhaps, but tolerance, unconditional, was not. I slept poorly that night, which is how small rebellions start, heavy with the knowledge that some relationships require a currency you do not have anymore. The next morning I called her. The call was a final inventory, a list made of sentences. I cannot keep doing this. I need to step away. I care about you, but not like this. Her voice cracked when she responded, which snagged something human in me. It would have been so easy to fold to dissolve this rigid boundary for the sake of nostalgia, but the truth is that you do not get to decide whether someone's missteps are forgivable. You get to decide whether you will continue to subject yourself to them. We said goodbye with that strange mechanical kindness that people reserve for endings. Promises that might as well be bookmarks rather than doors. I felt lighter and bereft. All at once, for years, we had been each other's scaffolding, and also our own demolition crew. I was tired of being a permanent solution to a repeatedly temporary problem. Walking away, I noticed the symmetry of small things. A postcard in the cafe window, a flight board, a pair of boots left in the corner of a shop. These were ordinary objects that had once been placeholders in our story. Now they felt like evidence of an economy I no longer wished to participate in. One where my emotional labor paid rent that was never recognized. The days that followed were quieter. I let my phone rest in a different room. I went for long walks that had no itinerary. I began untangling myself from the expectation that friendship is a constant rather than a contract. But the thing about endings is that they are messy and circular. A goodbye leaves residue, and sometimes that residue arrives in the form of a message. I miss you. Can we talk? I read the text and did something unfamiliar. I typed back slowly, choosing words like stones I might throw across a wide river. Maybe someday, I wrote. Right now, I need to take care of myself. There was a pause in the world after I hit send, as if the phone had become a moral fulcrum. Her response, sharp, pleading, almost feral in its honesty, was a small human thing. I'm trying. I don't want to lose you. But by then I had learned to hear the difference between trying and changing, between apology and accountability. I wanted to believe in people's capacity to grow. I wanted to be generous, yet experience had taught me that generosity without reciprocation becomes a pattern of residue. So I stepped back, took inventory of my own edges, and let the silence do its work. Memory is a shape-shifting thing. The story we tell ourselves. Where bad someone can harden into an indictment or soften into understanding. I tried to let it be the latter. But in the nights when the house settled into its own small mourning, I felt an ache that was not entirely about loss. It was about the recognition that some chapters do not end with fireworks. They close like a book placed on a table after it has been read one too many times. There were things left unsaid between us, not the big confessions that would make headlines, but the small, sharp little truths that accumulate like pebbles in shoes. Why did she hide her trip? Was it cowardice or something more complicated? A fear that the truth would fracture to people differently than a lie could? I did not know. What I did know was this. There are decisions whose meaning you cannot understand until you have removed yourself from their orbit. I left the cafe feeling both orphaned and oddly intact. The language that once shaped us together now felt like a dialect of hurt. I would not dictate the future for either of us. Perhaps time would soften the edge and give us a chance to rebuild in a new shape. Perhaps not. For now, I had to trust the new geometry of my life. I had to learn to walk without waiting for someone to catch me outside. The light slanted across the street in a way that suggested the end of summer. Somewhere, the ocean kept moving, indifferent to the small human dramas that feel so all-consuming. When you were at the center of them, I took a breath and began the slow work of deciding what, exactly, I would let go with this season. I thought distance would cure me, that if I simply stepped back far enough, the edges of the hurt would dull, and the whole thing would shrink into something manageable. But pain has a strange metabolism. It starves loudly, feeds quietly, and grows in the dark. And the more I tried to detach from Harper, the more I realized the detachment didn't happen cleanly. It tore like fabric. Days turned into weeks. My phone had stopped lighting up with her name, though sometimes I imagined a vibration that wasn't there. Habit is a ghost. It lingers long after the living leave. I kept replaying our last conversation. The tremble in her voice, the earnest apology, the pleading undertone she tried to hide. Some people break your heart accidentally. Others do it gently. Harper managed. Both. I wasn't sure what ending I wanted anymore. Closure, reconciliation, revenge, or simple silence. They tangled together until I couldn't tell them apart. But the one thing I did know was this. I wasn't ready for another betrayal. And then the universe, that cruel, amused narrator, decided to test me. The first sign something was wrong came on a Thursday evening, tucked between the ordinary. I was microwaving leftovers, the hum of the machine filling the kitchen, when my phone buzzed. Not a message, a notification. Tagged in a photo. I frowned. I hadn't been out. Hadn't done anything worth photographing? When I opened it, my breath faltered. Harper had posted a picture. Not old, not nostalgic, fresh. It was her standing in front of a bookstore downtown, laughing. The golden hour light caught her hair, her posture relaxed and buoyant in a way I hadn't seen in years. Next to her was a girl tall, stylish, confident, her arms slung casually over Harper's shoulder. The caption, "Finding new chapters with the people who just get you." My stomach dropped. People who get you, not got, get, present, tense. Now not me. The bookstore was exactly 5 blocks from my apartment. 5 blocks, and she hadn't texted me once, and then I noticed it buried in the comments. Isn't this the same place you and she used to go? Harper had replied with a winking emoji. A joke. A joke about us. A joke about me. I felt the kind of anger that doesn't roar, it freezes. I tapped the profile of the new girl. Her name was Avery, a photographer. 2,000 followers. Pictures full of coffee shops, vintage jackets, laughter that looked rehearsed but enviably genuine. Scrolling felt masochistic, but I couldn't stop. There it was. Another picture. Avery and Harper. Sitting on a blanket at a park, sharing headphones, a caption that twisted my lungs. Some people walk into your life at the right moment. Posted 4 days after Harper apologized to me in the cafe. Right moment, right person, right replacement? I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. I wasn't imagining it. Harper had found someone else to occupy the space I had been fighting to keep. The same routines, the same gestures, the same intimacy, redistributed like my presence had been. A placeholder, a warm-up act before the real connection arrived. My hand shook as I closed the app. The microwave beeped behind me, oblivious to the shift inside my chest. I didn't eat. I didn't sit. I just stood there in the small, humming kitchen, wondering if friendships die with explosions or if they simply dissolve into new shapes. Until you're the only one who remembers the old outline. The message I shouldn't have answered that night. Harper broke the silence. Harper, I know things still feel weird, but I miss our long talks. Hope you're okay. I stared at the message for a full minute, a bitter laugh escaping my throat. She missed our talks. She missed me. Then why was she building an entirely new version of our friendship with someone else? I typed, "Do you?" Because it doesn't feel like it. I erased it, typed again. You moved on pretty fast. Deleted. Finally, I chose something measured, something I wouldn't regret later. I'm figuring things out. I hit send, Harper replied almost instantly. Harper, I get it. I just hope we can find our way back. You're important to me. Important. Another. Word that had lost its weight. I wanted to ask, then why wasn't I important enough to be chosen? Why was I second place in a race I didn't know we were running? But instead I locked my phone and went to bed or tried to. Sleep hovered above me like a ceiling I couldn't reach. A strange shift in Harper's tone a few days passed. I made new routines, early jogs, late-night movies, a journal that slowly filled with entries I hoped no one would ever read. Then Harper called, not texted, Not liked an old post. Called. My phone buzzed on the table. Her name lit up the screen. A name that used to make me feel warm. Now it made my stomach clench. I debated not answering. But old habits die slowly and loudly. Hey, I said. Stiff, her voice trembled. Not with sadness, but with urgency. Can you meet me? She asked. I need to talk to you about something. It's important. My pulse spiked. Is everything okay? A long, shaky breath. I don't know. For the first time in weeks, she sounded afraid. Not guilty. Not apologetic. Afraid. A whisper of something cold slipped down my spine. The meeting that changed everything. We agreed to meet at Riverfront Park, a place we used to go after bad days, just to sit by the water and watch the lights flicker across the river. I arrived early. My nerves buzzed with a restless electricity. When Harper appeared, she wasn't sunlit or casual or composed. She looked undone. Her hair was unbrushed, her hoodie wrinkled, her face pale beneath. The amber glow of the street lamps taught she sat beside me without a greeting. For a moment she didn't speak. Her hands wrung together, fingers twisting. Finally, I think I made a mistake, she whispered. The kind of sentence that makes your heart lift stupidly before your brain catches up. What kind of mistake? I asked carefully. Her eyes filled. With something strange, not just fear. But regret tangled with something darker. I shouldn't have lied to you, she said. But it's bigger than that, I think. I think something's wrong. My breath hitched. With what? With Avery? The name landed like ice water on my skin. What about her? Harper swallowed hard, staring down at her trembling hands. She's not who I thought she was. I waited. The wind stirred the leaves. Somewhere far off, a siren blared. Harper leaned in, her voice barely audible. She knows things about me. I never told her. Personal things. Things only you knew. My chest tightened. What do you mean? Harper's voice cracked. I think she's been going through my messages, through my phone. Maybe even before we met. A chill crawled up my spine. Harper! How would she even get access to that? She shook her head violently. I don't know. But she brought up something I only wrote to you years ago. Something I never said out loud. My pulse pounded. And you're sure you didn't tell her? Absolutely. Her breathing quickened. I think she's been watching me. Studying me. She knew what coffee I ordered before I said it. She knew the name of my old cat. She knew the street I grew up on. I never told her any of that. My skin prick led Avery. The replacement. The girl in the photos, a stranger who just happened to appear at the right moment. Something inside me shifted. A sensation somewhere between dread and recognition. Harper was shaking now. I thought she was just being kind. Or intuitive. But it's more than that. Sometimes she finishes my sentences. Sometimes she tells me what I'm thinking before I say it. Her voice dropped to a tremor. And when I try to pull away, she gets angry. My breath caught. Angry how? Harper pressed her palms to her face. She said she'd fix things if I didn't stop avoiding her. She knew I was meeting you today. I never told her. A cold, sharp fear sliced through me. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't pettiness. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Why are you telling me this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Harper lifted her face. Her eyes were wet, desperate. Because you're the only person I trust and I don't know what to do. Her voice cracked, completely exposed. I think I got involved with someone I don't understand. Someone who knows too much about me. Someone who feels dangerous. Silence swallowed us whole. Dangerous. The word clung like frost. This wasn't the closure I had imagined. This wasn't even about betrayal anymore. This was something else. Something that turned the entire story. On its axis, I swallowed hard. Harper, what exactly are you afraid you'll do? Harper looked at me with a terror so raw it hollowed me out. She said she doesn't like when people come between us. She whispered. She said that if I keep seeing you, her breath shook. She'll make sure you disappear. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Not because the air was cold, though the wind along the river carried a sharpness that sliced through my jacket, but because Harper's words landed with a gravity that rearranged something inside me. Disappeared people. We'll use that word casually. Not Harper. Not with that tremor in her voice, not with that look. The kind that says she's already imagined the worst. I leaned slightly closer, lowering my voice without meaning to. Harper, did she threaten you? Directly? Her jaw trembled. Not in plain words, but the way she said it, the look on her face, like she knew something I didn't, like she'd already decided what she was going to do if I stepped out of line. Fear gnawed at the edges of her words. I tried to steady my breathing. Okay, slow down. You need to tell me everything. No filters. What exactly happened between you two? Harper shook her head. I don't know where it started. I don't even know how we got this close. One day she commented on a book I was buying, and the next day she added me on Instagram. She kept showing up everywhere. I was the coffee shop, the park, the gym. I thought it was coincidence. A chill ran through me. I didn't say anything yet, but then she'd say things like, you always go to the gym around 7, right? Or your mom lives 2 hours away. Must be tough. Harper swallowed. I never told her any of that. I felt another jolt of unease. Harper, do you think she was stalking you? Harper's silence was answer enough. I watched her fingers clench the hem of her hoodie, knuckles pale under the pressure. The river beside us flowed on, indifferent to the panic blooming between us. What happens when you try to pull away? I asked quietly. Her eyes darted toward me, wide and pleading. She changes her whole demeanor. It's like she turns off something inside her, like she becomes hollow. And then she says things like, we're meant to be aligned, or you belong in my circle. Sometimes she whispers what I'm thinking before I say it. Not guesses word for word. My heart stiffened. That's not intuition, that's obsession. Harper's breath hitched. I know. I ran a hand through my hair, struggling to stay calm for her sake. Harper, why didn't you tell me? Sooner. Her voice shrank into itself. Because I thought I deserved it. What? My voice cracked sharper than I intended. Her eyes brimmed again. Because I hurt you? Because I lied? Because I replaced you? I thought maybe this was karma. Maybe this was what happened to selfish people. A knot tightened in my throat. Harper, whatever happened between us, no one deserves this. Not you. She crumbled at that, covering her face as her shoulders shook. I hesitated only a second before resting a hand on her back. She didn't pull away. Harper, I said softly, you're not alone. We'll figure this out. She nodded into her palms, trying to gather herself, but I felt something then, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. My spine prickled, my chest tightened. Across the park, beyond the dim glow of a street lamp, a silhouette stood still. Observing, the figure didn't move, didn't pretend not to be looking. Avery, even from a distance, even with the shadow swallowing half her body. I recognized the outline, the posture, the sharpness of her frame. Harper sensed my stillness. What? What is it? I didn't take my eyes off the figure. I think she's here. Harper's head whipped around, breath catching sharply. Where? By the oak tree, I whispered. But the second Harper turned her head fully, the figure stepped backward, swallowed by darkness, as if pulled away by invisible hands. Gone, Harper. Single quotes as breathing turned ragged. She's following me, she whispered. I knew it. I forced myself to stay practical. We should leave now, public place or not. I don't want her getting close. Harper nodded, still trembling. We stood, handshaking as we started toward the parking lot. Every few steps, Harper glanced over her shoulder. Do you think she heard us? She whispered. I don't know, I said, but I had a sickening feeling she had heard everything. The ride home, Harper didn't want to go back to her apartment. Not alone. Not when she didn't know whether Avery had a key, or had cloned one, or had simply learned how to slip into the gaps of Harper's life. So she followed me to my place. The air inside felt safer, but only barely. Harper paced the living room like a trapped bird. I handed her water. She didn't drink it. How long has this been happening? I finally asked. She rubbed her arms, hugging herself. Maybe? 6 weeks? She always feels one step ahead. Like she's anticipating me. Like she's rewriting my life as she goes. A shudder went through her. Sometimes I feel like she knows me more than I know myself, she whispered. I didn't want to ask the next question, but I had to. Harper, did you ever give her access to your phone? She froze, her eyes lifted. Slowly to mine, guilty, terrified. I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, she swallowed hard. One night, after a long day, we fell asleep on her couch. I woke up at 4 a.m. and she wasn't beside me. She was sitting on the floor with her back to me, and my phone was in her hands. Harper's voice splintered. She said she was just plugging it in to charge. But the way she was holding it, my jaw clenched. She could have gone through everything. Harper nodded hopelessly. My messages, our photos, her personal files, her email, her passwords. She knows things she shouldn't, Harper whispered. She knows things I forgot I wrote. My heart sank deeper. What do you want to do? Harper looked at me with the fragile desperation of someone standing on a ledge. I want her gone. I nodded slowly. We'll block her, and report her, and maybe even talk to someone legally. But Harper shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. What don't I understand? If she feels threatened, Harper said, voice trembling. She doesn't lash out at me. Her eyes locked onto mine. She lashes out at the people I care about. The meaning hit me like a punch to the ribs. She knows about you, Harper whispered. She knows how much you meant to me. She saw your name in my phone. She saw our photos. She knows the trip we planned. The dread in her eyes was unbearable. She blames you for coming between us. I didn't respond. Co-LD and single quotes T. Because in that instant, my phone buzzed on the table. Both of us jumped. Harper's breath stopped. Don't, she whispered. Don't look. But I did. A message from an unknown number. Just one sentence. You should have stayed. Out of it? My blood-eyed thought Harper covered her mouth in horror. Oh my God! She's watching us! I stood quickly and locked the front door, checking the windows. My pulse hammered against my skin. Harper, I said, turning to her, you need to tell me the truth. Every detail. Every instinct. Everything you think she's capable of. Harper shook her head, her voice strangled. I don't know anymore. I don't know what she's capable of. But she inhaled shakily. I think she's done something like this before. My breath caught. What? She looked up with haunted eyes. There were posts on her Instagram from last year. Pictures. With another girl. Lots of them. Same poses. Same captions she later used with me. And then Harper swallowed, tears rising again. All the photos stopped. Overnight, the girl's account disappeared. Avery never mentioned her again. A cold breath slipped through me. Harper, I said quietly, you might not be her first obsession. Harper closed her eyes, voice cracking. I'm scared. I know, I whispered, but you're not alone. She took a shaky breath and nodded, though fear shook her frame. We sat there in my dimly lit living room, both listening for any sound outside. A car, a footstep, a whisper, a shadow, but the world stayed still. I don't think she'll stop, Harper said eventually. I don't think she will either, I admitted. We looked at each other, our breaths sinking in unease. Harper, whispered the thought neither of us wanted to admit. What if she's already here? The night that broke the last boundary, around midnight, the house felt too quiet. Harper had curled up on the far end of the couch, knees pulled to her chest, hoodie sleeves covering trembling fingers. I checked the windows again. Locked. Checked the door. Locked. Checked the side entrance. Locked. But something felt wrong. Not outside. Inside me, a sense of tightening, of being pulled into a story that had stopped belonging to me and somehow become more ominous than anything I had prepared myself for. I walked back into the living room to tell Harper she could take my bed, but she wasn't sitting up anymore. She was staring, unblinking at the hallway. "Harper?" I said quietly. She lifted her hand slowly, pointing. I followed her gaze. My stomach dropped. One of the doors in the hallway, the laundry room. Door was open. I had closed it earlier. I knew I had. I remember turning the handle. I swallowed hard. "Did you go in there?" Harper shook her head violently. "No." A creaking sound drifted from the darkness beyond the door, like a footstep on the wooden floor. Harper's eyes filled with terror. "She's here! I told you she'd come." I grabbed my phone with one hand and Harper's wrist with the other. "Don't move," I whispered. "Stay behind me." My heart thundered as adrenaline spiked through my veins, sharpening every sound, every shadow. I stepped carefully toward the hallway, pulse crashing in my ears, but before I reached the door, a voice slipped out of the darkness. Soft, familiar, poison sweet. "You should have stayed out of it." Harper let out a strangely sob. My blood turned to ice. And then a figure stepped into the faint light. Avery. Smiling. Light. She had been waiting. Avery stepped into the faint slice of hallway light as if the moment belonged to her, as if she had scripted it. Her presence didn't explode into the room. It slid in, deliberate, controlled, chilling. Her smile was the kind that didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were the kind that didn't blink. Harper clung to my arm so tightly I felt her nails through my sleeve. "Avery," I said, my voice lower than I expected. "You need to leave." She tilted her head, studying me with unsettling ease like she already knew what I would say. Like she had been practicing this moment. "You shouldn't talk to me like that," she murmured. "Not after everything I've done for her." "For her," I hissed. Avery stepped forward. Harper flinched behind me. "I've kept her safe," Avery continued, her voice soft as if reciting something she believed absolutely. "I've been there when others weren't. I've given her attention. You took for granted. I filled the space you left. She left because of you," I shot back. "You manipulated her." Avery's smile vanished. "Manipulated," she repeated, as if tasting the word. "No, I simply understood her better than you ever did." "Her?" Eyes flicked toward Harper, and Harper shrank behind me, her breath trembling against my back. "You don't know her," Avery whispered. "I know she's terrified of you," I said. Avery's gaze returned to mine, steady, unblinking. "I didn't want her to be afraid. Fear ruins things. But you," she pointed at me slowly, "you always ruin things." My heartbeat roared in my ears. "What do you want?" I demanded. Her expression softened heartbreakingly, disturbingly. "I want things to go back the way they were," she whispered. "Before you made her doubt me, before you came between us, I didn't come between anything," I said. "You forced your way into her life." Avery took one slow step toward us. "I didn't force anything," she said calmly. "I just saw her potential, her loneliness, her need to be understood, and I gave her all of that. I became what she needed." The temperature in the room felt wrong, too warm, too still, like the house was holding its breath. "But you," Avery continued, "you made her feel guilt. You made her question me. You made her think I wasn't real. I took a protective step in front of Harper. She wants you gone." Avery blinked. "She doesn't know what she wants." "Yes, I do," Harper whispered hoarsely. Avery's attention snapped to her. Harper froze. "You're confused," Avery said softly, walking closer. "People confuse you. They take from you. They disappear on you. I learned that the hard way. The hard way. The other girl. The missing posts." My pulse hammered. "Avery, you need to step away from her." She didn't even acknowledge me. "You told me," Avery murmured to Harper, "that you were tired of being abandoned, tired of being the second choice, tired of people lying." Harper's breath cracked. "I never told you that." Avery smiled gently. "You did in your messages years ago? When you were venting to?" She paused, eyes sliding to me. "To other people?" My stomach dropped. She had gone through Harper's phone. Harper's voice shook. "That doesn't give you the right to. I know you," Avery whispered. "Every thought, every fear, every person you wish you had confronted. I know what you need." She took another step. I planted myself firmly between them. "Don't come closer." Avery looked at me with something like exhaustion, as if I had become the obstacle she dreaded but expected. "You think you're protecting her?" Avery asked. "You're the one hurting her. You made her feel ashamed for choosing herself. You made her believe she owed you something. You made her believe she was replaceable." My breath caught. Harper's fingers tightened on my shirt. Avery's voice softened even more, an eerie, gentle monotone. "I taught her she wasn't replaceable." I steadied my voice. "You don't get to teach her anything." For the first time, Avery's composure cracked. A flicker of something fragile, dangerous, unstable. "You took her from me," she whispered. "And I don't handle loss well." A chill ran through my bones. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," Avery said, stepping fully into the light now, revealing eyes glossy with a terrifying certainty, "I don't let people disappear from her life unless I decide they should." Harper choked on a sob. "Avery, stop." A shadow passed over Avery's expression. "You said you'd be honest with me," Avery whispered. "You said you'd never lie. But then you met her today. You told her things you didn't tell me. You still trust her more than you trust me." She took another step. Harper whimpered, pulling me back. "Avery, please." Avery's voice sharpened like broken glass. "I'm not losing you." I tightened my hold on Harper and whispered urgently, "Run!" But Harper's legs wouldn't move. Avery stepped closer, eyes glinting. "You should have stayed out of it," she repeated. "She didn't need you anymore." She reached into her pocket. My heart stopped. Harper, go! I shouted. And finally, Harper moved. She bolted toward the back door. I grabbed the closest thing I could reach, a lamp, and swung it toward Avery as she lunged forward. The lamp smashed against her shoulder. Avery stumbled, but didn't fall. Her eyes snapped up at me, wild, furious, betrayed. You shouldn't have done that, she hissed. I backed away, adrenaline spiking. Stay away from us. She didn't listen. She rushed toward me. I shoved a chair in her path and ran after Harper, my breath a frantic rush in my chest. I heard Avery slam into the chair, then the sound of it crashing to the floor. Harper, move, I yelled as we reached the back door. I flung it open. Cold air hit us. We ran into the dark backyard, feet pounding the concrete. Harper's sobs echoed as we sprinted toward the gate. Behind us dash footsteps. Fast approaching. Double quotes open I cried. Harper fumbled with the latch, hands shaking uncontrollably. The footsteps closed in. I turned just in time to see Avery bursting through the doorway. Her silhouette sliced by the porch light, her face twisted into something no longer human in its calm. Don't leave, she screamed. I slammed my shoulder into the gate beside Harper, helping force it open. We stumbled out into the alley and ran, neither of us daring to look back. We didn't stop until we reached the street. Gasping, trembling, half collapsing on the sidewalk. People stared. A car slowed, but no one came closer. Harper clung to me like a child. Is she following? Harper sobbed. I turned. The alley was pitch dark. No movement, but the silence felt wrong, like something was holding its breath, watching, calculating. We need to call the police, I said, pulling up my phone with shaking hands. Harper nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks. Please, yes, please. But my phone lit up before I could dial a text, from the same unknown number as before. My stomach twisted as I opened it. There was no sentence this time, just a picture. The photo was of my house, my living room window taken from outside, taken minutes ago, and beneath it. Next time, I won't miss. Harper saw it over my shoulder and screamed. The aftermath, the police came. They interviewed both of us for hours. They swept the house, documented everything, filed reports. But Avery was gone. No forced entry, no fingerprints, no sign she had ever been there, except for the photo, the threat, and the terror that lingered in the walls. They told us not to go home alone. They told Harper to stay with someone. They told us to keep our phones close. They told us to avoid escalating the situation. As if we escalated it. As if we asked for any of this. Harper stayed with me for the next few days. She barely slept. Startled at every sound. Jumped whenever her phone buzzed at first. Avery kept texting. Then the messages stopped. Silence, the kind that feels worse than noise. We reported everything. We did what we were supposed to do. But Avery was always 2 steps ahead. Always somewhere. Unseen. Always waiting. Until one morning, maybe a week later, Harper woke up to find something slipped under my front door. A single Polaroid. Me and Harper. Asleep on my couch. Taken from inside the house. Harper's scream that morning tore through me like a blade. We moved out the next day. We had changed numbers, changed addresses, filed restraining orders, blocked everything. Everything. Avery disappeared completely, like a shadow fleeing the sun. No trace, no posts, no digital footprint, nothing. But the fear stayed. The unease, the suspicion. The feeling of being watched. Months passed. Harper got therapy. I supported her. We rebuilt ourselves slowly, cautiously, both of us learning what safety meant again. We never spoke of the trip again. We never spoke of Avery except in whispers. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind hits the window just right, Harper still asks, "Do you think she's still out there?" And I answer honestly, I don't know. Because the truth is, some people don't disappear. They linger in the cracks of your life, in the corners of your memory, in the shadows of places you once felt safe. And sometimes, when I'm walking alone, I get the strangest feeling that someone is following me. Matching my pace. Watching. Waiting. And every so often, my phone buzzes with an unknown number. I never open the messages, but the previews always show the same thing. A photograph, taken from behind me, recent clear. Close. And the same chilling line beneath every one. You should have stayed out of it.